Neri sat at her floating desk in the grand lecture hall of the Galactic Academy of Sciences. Her blue skin shimmered under the artificial lights as she rolled her three eyes at the latest topic of discussion. Earth. Can you believe they still burn fossil fuels? She whispered to Suma, her purple-skinned classmate. Both young women were top students from advanced civilizations. Neri's people, the Arcturians, had mastered faster-than-light travel before humans had invented the wheel. What else would you expect from a level 2 planet? Shuna replied, her antenna twitching with amusement. I heard their average lifespan is less than a century. This comment made several nearby female students laugh. In the prestigious halls of the Academy, Earth was considered nothing more than a cosmic joke, a backward world whose inhabitants had barely reached their own moon, while other civilizations built empires across multiple star systems. The instructor, Professor Hana, cleared her throat. She was an elder Pleiadian with silver skin who had studied thousands of developing worlds. Ladies, your attention please. The annual Cultural Exchange Program selections have been announced. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing 20 planets rotating slowly. The students watched eagerly. Being selected to host a representative from another world was considered an honor and a valuable addition to one's academic record. This year, Professor Hana continued, we've included several level 2 worlds in our program, including. She paused for effect. Earth. A wave of groans filled the hall. Neri made a dramatic gagging motion that caused several of her friends to burst into laughter. Someone must have lost a bet, called Jia, a reptilian student from the back row. Professor Hana silenced them with a stern look. The exchange program exists precisely to challenge your preconceptions. The Council believes Earth holds unexpected potential. What potential? Neri couldn't help asking. Their world is polluted, their governments are divided, and they spend more resources on fighting each other than solving their problems. And that is why you, Neri, will be hosting Earth's representative, Professor Hana announced with a small smile. Neri's mouth fell open in shock. Her friends turned to her with expressions of mock sympathy. This isn't fair, Neri protested. I'm specializing in advanced quantum engineering. What could I possibly learn from a human? Perhaps humility, Professor Hana suggested, causing several students to snicker. The assignment stands. Earth's representative arrives in 7 rotations. After class, Neri stormed down the crystal corridors of the Academy's residential wing. The massive space station that housed the Academy orbited a neutral star on the edge of the Galactic Council's territory. Through the transparent walls, she could see the swirl of stars and the occasional flash of ships arriving and departing. It's not the end of the universe, Shumi said, trying to console her friend. Maybe your human will be entertaining, like a pet. I don't want a pet, Neri grumbled. I wanted to host someone from Sirius or Andromeda, someone who could actually help with my research. They reached the common room where students gathered between classes. A group had already formed around Yun, who was displaying a holographic model of Earth. Look how much of it is just water, Yun was saying, spinning the blue planet. And most of their land isn't even developed. I heard their bodies are mostly water too, added another student. They're basically walking puddles. Neri joined the group, her mood slightly improved by the opportunity to join in ridiculing her future guest's homeworld. Did you know they sleep for a third of their day? She contributed. Just lie down and become unconscious. How inefficient. And they have no natural defenses, Yun said. No claws, weak teeth, thin skin. It's amazing they survived this long. The mockery continued until their personal devices chimed, alerting them to the next class. As Neri gathered her materials, she received a notification. Details about Earth's representative had been uploaded to her account. Later that evening, lying on her gravity-adjusted bed, Neri reviewed the file. The human was named Taiho, a male. Earth still maintained binary gender distinctions. How primitive. His credentials listed military service followed by diplomatic training, unimpressive by galactic standards. His image showed a creature with brownish skin, dark hair, and only 2 eyes. Nothing remarkable. "Computer, show me more information about Earth humans," Nari commanded. The room's AI complied, projecting images and data about human physiology, society, and history. Much of it confirmed what Nari already believed. Humans were fragile, short-lived creatures whose civilization was barely 10,000 years old. Their technological development was uneven, with remarkable advancements in some areas alongside shocking primitiveness in others. "Computer, what does the Council mean about Earth's potential?" she asked finally. "Analysis incomplete," the AI responded. "Earth's development pattern is atypical. While most species advance technologically at predictable rates, human advancement has shown unusual acceleration in the past 3 centuries. Additionally, human adaptability exceeds standard evolutionary models." This piqued Nari's interest slightly. "Explain adaptability factors." "Humans survive in environments ranging from extreme cold to extreme heat. They recover from injuries that would be fatal to many species. Their neurological systems form new connections throughout their lives, allowing for continuous learning. These traits are rare in combination." Nari considered this. Perhaps there was something interesting about humans after all, as scientific curiosities, if nothing else. The next morning, Professor Hanna announced a special preparatory session for all students hosting representatives from Level 2 planets. "Your guests will likely be overwhelmed by the Academy," she explained. "Many will never have seen alien species before, let alone visited a space station. You must show patience." "Will they even understand our technology?" asked Jua. "All representatives have been provided with translation implants and basic orientation," Professor Hanna answered. "But yes, expect confusion. Remember that many of your own ancestors were once at similar developmental stages. How long do we have to keep them?" Nari asked, still unhappy about her assignment. "The exchange lasts 1 standard cycle, 30 Earth days," Professor Hanna said. "During this time, you will introduce them to Academy life, attend special cultural seminars, and participate in the Galactic Skills Exhibition." The Skills Exhibition was a highlight of the academic year, a chance for students to demonstrate their species' unique abilities. Nari had been planning her quantum manipulation demonstration for months. Now she would have to include a human who probably couldn't comprehend the basics of her field. The days passed quickly. The Academy buzzed with preparations for the arrival of the exchange visitors. Special accommodations were created to match the environmental needs of various species. Food synthesizers were programmed with new molecular patterns. Medical facilities stocked treatments for dozens of different physiologies. Despite herself, Nari became curious about meeting a real human. She had studied countless species but had never encountered one from such an isolated world. What would Tejo think of the Academy? Would he be terrified? Awestruck? Would he understand anything about their advanced society? On the day of arrival, Nari joined the other host students in the Grand Docking Bay. One by one, ships from various worlds arrived, depositing their representatives. Some were clearly nervous, others maintained dignified composure, despite their obvious wonder at the Academy's splendor. "Earth shuttle approaching," announced the docking eye. Nari straightened her ceremonial robe and prepared her practiced greeting. The Earth shuttle was smaller than most, with crude but functional design. It eased into the docking port with surprising precision. The door hissed open. Nari held her breath, expecting a confused, overwhelmed human to stumble out. Instead, Tahoe stepped confidently onto the Academy floor. He was taller than his file had suggested, with an upright posture and alert eyes that quickly scanned the room before settling on Nari. Instead of appearing intimidated by the diverse alien life forms around him, he smiled, a human expression Nari recognized from her studies. "You must be Nari," he said through his translator, his voice steady. "I'm honored to meet you. Thank you for hosting me." Nari blinked all 3 of her eyes in succession, momentarily speechless. This was not the reaction she had expected. Before she could respond, the lights in the docking bay flickered, and several control panels began flashing red, a common occurrence when new technology interfaces with Academy systems. The alien students looked around in confusion as alarms sounded, but Taeho's reaction surprised everyone. Instead of panic, he quickly assessed the situation, walked to the nearest control panel, and began inputting commands as if he understood the system. Compatibility error in the translation matrices, he explained calmly. Your system is trying to integrate with our shuttle's communications array, but the protocols are misaligned. Within moments, he had implemented a bypass that not only stopped the alarms but improved the interface. The lights returned to normal. Neri stared at him. Perhaps this exchange would be more interesting than she had thought. Taeho stood confidently in the docking bay of the Galactic Academy, surrounded by aliens who had expected him to be overwhelmed. The look of surprise on Neri's three-eyed blue face almost made him smile. He had studied her species extensively during his journey. The Arcturians were known for their technological superiority, and unfortunately, their condescension toward lesser worlds. "How did you know how to fix our systems?" Neri asked, her translator converting her musical language into Earth Korean, which the Academy had determined was Taeho's preferred language. "Your technology follows universal principles," Taeho explained simply. "The basics of information transfer don't change, even if the hardware does." A tall, silver-skinned alien approached them. "Impressive, Earth representative. I am Professor Hana, coordinator of the exchange program." Taeho bowed respectfully. "Thank you for this opportunity, Professor." "Neri will show you to your quarters," Professor Hana said. "Tomorrow, all representatives will receive a formal orientation." As they walked through the Academy's curved hallways, Taeho observed everything with quiet attention. The station was enormous, easily the size of a small city, with transparent sections that revealed the stunning starscape beyond. Students from dozens of species moved efficiently through the corridors, many casting curious glances his way. "You're staring," Neri pointed out. "As is everyone else," Taeho replied with a small smile. "That's natural, isn't it, when meeting something new?" Neri seemed surprised by his response. "I suppose, though most Level 2 visitors are too intimidated to notice." Level 2, Planetary Development Classification. Earth is Level 2. Achieved spaceflight but limited to home system. Discovered atomic energy but still uses fossil fuels. Developed global communications but still maintains separate nation-states. "And what level is your world?" Taeho asked. "Arcturus Prime is Level 5. We've had unified planetary governance for 9,000 years and colonized 12 star systems." They reached a door that slid open automatically. Inside was a small but comfortable room, with strange furniture that seemed to float slightly above the floor. "Your quarters," Neri explained. "The environmental controls have been adjusted to Earth standards. The room will respond to verbal commands in your language." Taeho set down his small travel case. "Thank you. Do you need assistance operating anything?" Neri asked, clearly expecting him to be confused by the advanced technology. "I'll manage," Taeho said, "but I appreciate your concern." Neri seemed uncertain how to respond. "The orientation begins at first light. I'll return to guide you there." After she left, Taeho explored his room. The bed adjusted automatically to his body shape when he sat on it. The walls could become transparent, offering a view of space, or display any scene he requested. The food synthesizer could create something approximating Earth cuisine from molecular patterns. "Computer," he said, testing the system, "show me the Academy's layout." A detailed three-dimensional map appeared in the center of the room. Taeho studied it carefully, noting key locations, classrooms, research labs, common areas, and emergency exits. Earth's briefing had been thorough, but seeing the actual scale of the Academy was still impressive. The next morning, Neri arrived precisely on time. She seemed surprised to find Taeho already awake and ready. I thought humans required extended sleep periods, she said. We do, but I've adjusted my cycle for academy time, Tahoe explained. 6 hours is sufficient with proper conditioning. The orientation took place in a vast amphitheater. Representatives from 20 planets sat with their hosts while Academy officials explained rules, schedules, and expectations. Tahoe noticed he was the only human present. Earth had sent just one representative, while some worlds had sent entire delegations. Throughout the presentation, he could hear whispers and comments about Earth. His translator picked up fragments. Primitive, underdeveloped, barely spacefaring. He maintained a neutral expression, though he noted which species seemed most dismissive. After the formal welcome, the representatives were taken on a tour of the Academy's main facilities. The research labs were particularly impressive, with experiments in energy generation, gravity manipulation, and biological sciences that went far beyond Earth's current capabilities. In one lab, students were creating miniature stars in containment fields. In another, they were studying the effects of dimensional folding on living tissue. Tahoe asked specific, technical questions that clearly surprised the lab supervisors. Several times, Nari glanced at him with growing curiosity. "Your understanding of quantum principles is unexpected," she finally said as they left one of the physics labs. "Earth science has made significant progress in theoretical physics," Tahoe replied. "Our implementation lags because of resource limitations and political disagreements, not conceptual understanding." The tour concluded at the main dining hall, a massive space with hundreds of eating stations adapted for different species' needs. The air was filled with a cacophony of languages, all being processed through translation systems. Tahoe followed Nari to a table where several of her friends were already seated. He recognized various species from his briefing materials: the purple-skinned Pleiadians, reptilian draconians, crystalline lyrans, and others. "So this is your Earth pet," said one of the aliens, Suma, according to his translator. Her antenna twitched in what his cultural briefing identified as amusement. "I prefer representative," Tahoe said calmly, "though I understand the concept of keeping companion animals exists in many cultures." The table fell silent, surprised by his direct response. "He fixed the docking bay systems yesterday," Nari said, an odd note in her voice that might have been defensive. "Lucky guess," suggested another student. Yun, a crystalline being whose gender was indeterminate to human perception. "Not luck," Tahoe corrected politely. "Your systems use a standard Riemann curve encryption for external communications. Earth developed similar protocols independently, though ours are less efficient. The food arrived via automated delivery systems, customized nutrition for each species. Tahoe's meal resembled Earth cuisine, though the textures were slightly off. He ate without complaint, observing the social dynamics around him. The alien students clearly considered themselves superior, but there were hierarchies even among them. The Level 5 civilizations led most conversations, while representatives from lesser advanced worlds spoke less frequently. It reminded Tahoe of international relations on Earth, bigger powers and smaller nations, all with their pride and insecurities. "Tomorrow you begin shadowing Nari's regular schedule," Yun explained. "Hope you can keep up with quantum engineering principles." "I'll do my best," Tahoe said simply. After the meal, Nari guided him back toward the residential section. They passed through a garden area where plants from hundreds of worlds grew in carefully controlled environments. "You're not what I expected," Nari finally said. "What did you expect?" "Someone more." She hesitated. "Primitive, easily impressed, intimidated." Tahoe stopped to examine a plant that resembled an earth orchid, but glowed softly in the artificial twilight. "Humans have a long history of adapting to new situations. It's one of our better traits. But your world is so limited. You've barely left your own planet." "True," Tahoe acknowledged. "But that doesn't mean we're limited in our thinking or our potential." Before Nari could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed along the corridors, and announcements in multiple languages echoed through the halls. Environmental system failure in Section 12, reported the station's eye. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately. Students began rushing through the corridors. Taiho noticed several younger aliens looking confused and frightened. "What's Section 12?" he asked Nari. "The Xenobotany labs," she explained, joining the evacuation flow. "They contain some species that produce toxic spores if their containment fails." As they moved with the crowd, Taiho noticed a small alien child separated from its group, pressed against a wall as larger students rushed past. Without hesitation, he moved against the flow, reached the child, and guided it safely to the side. "Are you lost?" he asked gently. The child's translator seemed to be malfunctioning, but it nodded. Taiho lifted the small being. It weighed almost nothing in the station's artificial gravity, and carried it through the crowd. Nari had stopped, watching this interaction with surprise. "The nursery level is that way," she said, pointing to a side corridor. "But we should evacuate." "You go ahead," Taiho replied. "I'll make sure this one gets to safety first." Nari hesitated, then followed him. "That's not the protocol during emergencies. Sometimes protocols need adjustment," Taiho said simply. They delivered the child to concerned caretakers at the nursery level, then continued their evacuation. By the time they reached the safe zone, the emergency was already being contained. A system malfunction had caused a momentary drop in the containment fields, but Academy technicians had quickly restored them. As the all-clear sounded and students began returning to their activities, Nari turned to Taiho with a puzzled expression. "You risked delay to help a child that isn't even your species." Taiho shrugged. "Wouldn't anyone? Most would follow evacuation protocols exactly," Nari said. "Efficiency is valued here." "Efficiency is important," Taiho agreed, "but so is compassion." Something in Nari's expression shifted. She studied him with all three of her eyes, as if seeing him properly for the first time. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "there are things about humans worth studying after all." As they walked back to the residential area, several students who had witnessed Taiho's actions nodded respectfully to him. The Earth representative wasn't what any of them had expected, and word was beginning to spread through the Academy that perhaps humans weren't as primitive as their technology suggested. Back in his quarters, Taiho recorded his observations of the day. Earth's leaders were eager for any information about the galactic community that had so far kept their world at arm's length. But Taiho knew his real mission went beyond gathering intelligence. He was here to change perceptions, to show that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, he had made a small beginning. The look in Nari's eyes told him that at least one alien was starting to see humans differently. Taiho entered the Academy's vast simulation chamber, where a crowd of alien students had gathered to observe the Earth cultural demonstration. The circular room could create virtually any environment through advanced holographic technology. Today, it would showcase aspects of human life that Taiho had selected to represent Earth. Nari stood near the entrance, her blue skin shimmering under the lights. After 2 weeks at the Academy, Taiho had noticed subtle changes in her attitude. The mockery had faded, replaced by genuine curiosity. "Are you ready?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Taiho replied with a small smile. Each exchange representative was expected to share aspects of their home culture. Many aliens were treating the Earth presentation as entertainment, a chance to laugh at primitive customs. Professor Hana stepped forward to introduce him. "Today, we continue our cultural exchange series with Earth. Remember that understanding developing worlds helps us predict their future contributions to galactic society." Taiho moved to the center of the chamber. "Computer, run Earth Simulation 1." The room transformed. They stood in a simple dojo with wooden floors and paper walls. Sunlight filtered through the windows, and distant mountains were visible outside. "This is a training hall for what we call martial arts," Taiho explained. These are systems of combat that developed over thousands of years on Earth. Several alien students laughed quietly. The idea of physical combat seemed primitive to species that had developed energy weapons or telepathic abilities centuries ago. Computer, add partner, Taiho commanded. A holographic human appeared, a tall, muscular opponent programmed to mimic advanced fighting techniques. On Earth, these practices evolved beyond mere fighting. They became philosophies about harmony, balance, and self-improvement. Taiho bowed to his opponent. Then, without warning, they engaged in combat. The aliens watched as the two figures moved in a beautiful, almost dance-like sequence of strikes, blocks, and counters. Taiho's movements were fluid and precise, demonstrating years of training. What impressed the observers wasn't the fighting itself, but how Taiho used his opponent's strength against them. When the larger hologram attacked, Taiho redirected that energy, rather than opposing it directly, causing his opponent to fall. This principle is called the way of the gentle path, Taiho explained, helping his holographic opponent up. We learned that sometimes yielding is stronger than resisting. Nari's three eyes widened slightly. This philosophy mirrored advanced conflict resolution theories taught in upper-level academy courses. Computer, Earth Simulation 2, Taiho said. The dojo disappeared, replaced by a concert hall. A grand piano stood in the center. Music exists in all human cultures, Taiho explained. He sat at the piano and began to play. The melody started simply but grew increasingly complex, a piece by Chopin that expressed deep emotion through mathematical precision. The aliens listened in silence. Music existed throughout the galaxy, but human compositions had unique emotional qualities. Several species in the room found themselves unexpectedly moved by the harmonies. One of the Pleiadian students, whose species was known for their advanced sonic arts, tilted her head in surprise. The mathematical patterns match our sacred ratios, she whispered to her companion. After the music, Taiho moved to his final demonstration. Computer, Earth Simulation 3. The room transformed into a simple classroom with a circular arrangement of seats. This represents one of our philosophical traditions, Taiho explained. What we call the Socratic method, named after an ancient teacher. He invited the alien students to sit. Many did so cautiously, still expecting something primitive. On Earth, we have a saying, "I know that I know nothing." This is the beginning of wisdom, Taiho began. Our earliest philosophers taught that questioning assumptions leads to greater understanding. For the next 30 minutes, Taiho led a discussion about consciousness, existence, and ethics that surprised the alien students with its sophistication. Species that considered themselves intellectually superior found themselves challenged by questions humans had been pondering for millennia. When the presentation ended, the room returned to its neutral state. There was a moment of silence before the applause began, a custom that many alien species had independently developed. Professor Hanna stepped forward. "Thank you, Earth representative. That was illuminating. Tomorrow, we begin the physical trials portion of our exchange program." As the crowd dispersed, several alien students approached Taiho with questions about Earth philosophy and music. Nari watched from a distance, her perception continuing to shift. Later that evening, they sat in one of the Academy's observation domes, looking out at the stars. This had become their routine. Nari would explain aspects of galactic society, and Taiho would share insights about Earth. "Your presentation surprised many," Nari admitted. "That was the intention," Taiho replied. "Earth is young compared to most council worlds, but we've been asking the same important questions for thousands of years. Tomorrow won't be about philosophy, though," Nari warned. "The physical trials are designed to test adaptability and endurance. Most Level 2 representatives struggle." "What should I expect?" "Variable gravity environments, atmospheric changes, sensory challenges. The course was designed to accommodate many species, but it's demanding." Taiho nodded. "I'll do my best." The next morning, They gathered at the Academy's enormous training facility. Representatives from all 20 exchange worlds were present, along with hundreds of student observers. The course before them was a complex maze of obstacles, changing environments, and problem-solving challenges. Professor Hanna explained the rules. You'll progress through 10 stages, each testing different capabilities. There is no shame in withdrawing if a stage becomes too difficult for your physiology. Neri leaned toward Tahoe. The course was adjusted for Level 2 participants. It's still difficult, but you won't face anything truly dangerous. Tahoe heard the concern in her voice. Thank you. The trials began. The first few stages involved standard physical challenges: climbing, balancing, navigating narrow passages. Tahoe completed these efficiently, though not as quickly as some representatives from more physically advanced species. The real test came at Stage 5. As Tahoe entered the chamber, the gravity suddenly doubled. Many observers expected him to struggle. Humans evolved in relatively constant gravity. Instead, Tahoe adjusted his posture and continued moving, his breathing controlled and deliberate. Remarkable adaptation, commented one of the Academy scientists monitoring the trials. Most species require technology to function in variable gravity. Stage 6 introduced atmospheric changes, reduced oxygen, increased pressure. Tahoe's breathing became labored, but he pressed on. Earth's varied environments had prepared humans to endure atmospheric stress better than species from more uniform worlds. By Stage 8, half the representatives had withdrawn. The remaining competitors faced a problem-solving challenge in an environment of extreme cold. Tahoe's fingers grew numb as he worked to rearrange crystal patterns that would open the exit door. In the observation area, Shuma turned to Nari. Your human is performing beyond expectations. He's not my human, Nari corrected, but she couldn't hide her pride. Something had changed in how she viewed Tahoe, and by extension, Earth itself. The final stage combined all previous challenges: variable gravity, atmospheric stress, temperature extremes, and complex problem-solving. Only 6 representatives remained, including Tahoe. As he worked through the final puzzle, a 3-dimensional energy matrix that required constant adjustment, the observers noticed something unique about his approach. While other competitors relied on their species' particular strengths, Tahoe constantly adapted his strategy as conditions changed. When he finally completed the course, finishing 4th overall, the Academy erupted in applause. Representatives from worlds far more advanced than Earth had withdrawn earlier. Professor Hanna's expression showed genuine respect as she presented completion medallions to the finalists. The purpose of these trials is not to identify the strongest or fastest, she announced, but to demonstrate how different evolutionary paths create different kinds of resilience. Today, we've seen that younger species often possess adaptability that more specialized ones have lost. Later, in the Academy's medical center where all participants received post-trial evaluation, Tahoe sat quietly as advanced scanners assessed his condition. Your heart rate increased by 217% during the atmospheric challenge, the medical officer noted. Yet you maintained cognitive function. Earth has regions with high altitude and low oxygen, Tahoe explained. Humans who live there adapt over time. And the cold environment. Your extremities reach temperatures that would cause tissue damage with prolonged exposure. We evolved as persistence hunters on a planet with extreme seasonal variations. Cold is an old enemy we've learned to endure. The medical officer made additional notes. Fascinating. Most species at your technological level would have engineered away these stressors or developed complete dependence on environmental technology. After the examination, Tahoe found Nari waiting outside. For the first time, she seemed unsure what to say. I didn't expect you to complete the course, she finally admitted. Because humans are primitive, Tahoe asked, but without accusation. Because the course wasn't designed with human physiology in mind. She paused. But you adapted to each challenge instead of relying on specialized traits. That's uncommon. They walked together toward the residential area. Along the way, other students acknowledged Taiho with gestures of respect. Nods, antenna dips, light pulses, each according to their species' customs. Something has changed, Taiho observed. Perception, Neri replied. They're beginning to see Earth differently. As they reached his quarters, Neri hesitated. There's a stellar phenomenon visible from the observation deck tonight, a neutron star passing through a dust cloud. Would you like to observe it? It's quite beautiful. Taiho smiled. I'd like that very much. That evening, as they watched the distant star painting colors across the cosmic dust, Taiho realized he was witnessing more than just an astronomical event. He was seeing the beginning of a change in how the galaxy viewed his home. Earth's isolation might soon end, not because humans had developed faster ships or more powerful weapons, but because they had shown qualities that even the most advanced civilizations recognized as valuable. Beside him, Neri was seeing Earth, and perhaps herself, in a new light as well. The alarm sounded at exactly 3:27 Academy Standard Time. Taiho woke instantly, years of military training taking over as the urgent blaring echoed through his quarters. Red emergency lights pulsed along the walls. Warning: critical system failure in Research Section Alpha. All non-essential personnel evacuate to safety zones immediately. This is not a drill. Taiho pulled on his uniform and rushed into the corridor where dozens of confused alien students were emerging from their rooms. 3 weeks into his stay at the academy, he had memorized the emergency protocols and evacuation routes. Neri appeared from a side hallway, her blue skin looking almost purple under the red warning lights. The third eye on her forehead was wide open, a sign of extreme stress in Arcturians. What's happening? Taiho asked, guiding a group of younger students toward the designated evacuation route. The experimental energy core, Neri explained, her voice tight with worry. Something's happening with the containment field. The Academy's main power came from an artificial quantum singularity, technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. Taiho had toured the facility during his second week, impressed by the elegant design that extracted almost limitless energy from a carefully controlled pinpoint in space-time. They joined the stream of evacuees moving through the wide corridors. Station security officers directed traffic at intersections, their voices calm but urgent. Through the transparent sections of the hallway, Taiho could see emergency ships launching from distant docking bays. The evacuation led them to a large assembly area, 6 sections away from the endangered zone. Academy officials were organizing students by department and species, using floating holographic signs to mark gathering points. Professor Hannah stood on a raised platform, coordinating with other senior staff. Her silver skin reflected the emergency lights as she spoke urgently into a communication device. When she noticed Taiho and Neri, she motioned them over. The containment field is destabilizing, she explained without preamble. Engineering teams are attempting repairs, but the radiation levels in the chamber are rising rapidly. What caused it? Neri asked. A calibration error during routine maintenance. The primary field generators are offline, and the backups are failing sequentially. Professor Hana's expression was grim. If full containment fails, half the station could be destroyed. Taiho studied the holographic display showing the affected area. Your remote systems can't handle the repairs. The radiation is interfering with our automated repair drones, another official explained. Jin, the Academy's chief engineer. The quantum fluctuations are too unpredictable for our AI to compensate. What about manual intervention? Taiho asked. Jin shook his head. Impossible. The radiation levels are already at 320 rems and rising, fatal for most species within minutes of exposure. Taiho considered this information. During his briefing on Earth, he had reviewed the Academy's technical specifications, including their radiation measurement systems. How much time before critical failure? He asked. Approximately 42 minutes, Jin replied. We're preparing to jettison the entire research module as a last resort, but that would mean losing irreplaceable research and equipment. Tai-Ho made a quick calculation. What needs to be done to stabilize the field? The engineer looked surprised at the question. The primary control node needs physical reset and recalibration. It's a simple procedure, but impossible under current conditions. Show me the exact procedure, Tai-Ho said. Jin hesitated, then projected a detailed sequence of steps onto a nearby screen. Tai-Ho studied it carefully, memorizing each action. I'll do it, he said firmly. The room fell silent. Neri stared at him in disbelief. That's suicide, she said. Even with protection, the radiation would kill you before you finished. Not necessarily, Tai-Ho replied. Humans have different radiation tolerance than most galactic species, and I have training in radiation exposure scenarios. This wasn't entirely accurate. Tai-Ho had basic hazardous environment training from his military service, but nothing that prepared him for these extreme levels. Still, he had studied the Academy's records on comparative physiology. Most advanced species had evolved sophisticated biological systems that were paradoxically more vulnerable to radiation than Earth's relatively simpler organisms. Professor Hanna studied him carefully. Are you certain? We cannot ask this of you. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Tai-Ho turned to Jin. I'll need whatever radiation protection equipment you have, even if it's not rated for these levels. Every little bit helps. Neri grabbed his arm. This is insane. The exposure would cause cellular damage even if you survived initially. Earth medicine has advanced treatments for radiation exposure, Tai-Ho said, not mentioning that such treatments were limited and not always effective. And the alternative is losing half the station. The Academy officials exchanged glances. They had not expected such an offer from a representative of a Level 2 world. If you're determined, Jin said finally, we can provide a partial protection suit and real-time health monitoring. But you'll have approximately 12 minutes before exposure reaches critical levels for human physiology. The procedure takes 15 minutes with proper equipment, Neri protested. Then I'll have to work fast, Tai-Ho replied. As Jin led him toward the equipment storage area, Neri followed, still arguing against the plan. Other alien students watched in confusion. They couldn't understand why a human would risk his life for an academy that had largely treated his species with condescension. In the preparation room, technicians helped Tai-Ho into a radiation suit designed for emergency repairs. The material was lightweight, but provided limited protection against the intense energy that would be present in the core chamber. This will reduce your exposure by approximately 40%, the technician explained, but the cumulative dose will still be extremely dangerous. Tai-Ho nodded as they attached monitoring devices to his chest and wrist. Can you modify the helmet displayed to show the procedure steps? Already done, Jin said, handing him a specialized toolkit. These are calibrated for the control node. The sequence is simple, but you'll need steady hands. As the final preparations were made, Neri stood at the door, her three eyes fixed on Tai-Ho with an expression he couldn't interpret. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Because I can, he replied simply. And because it needs to be done. Before she could respond, an alarm sounded. The containment field had degraded further, shortening their timeline. We need to move now, Jin urged. As they headed toward the crisis point, Academy officials cleared corridors and shut down non-essential systems to provide maximum power to remaining containment measures. Through the station's windows, Tai-Ho could see emergency vessels moving further away from the threatened section. They reached the final security checkpoint. Beyond it lay a short corridor leading to the core chamber. Even here, radiation detectors were showing elevated readings. Jin provided final instructions. The control node is on the far wall. Follow the highlighted path on your helmet display. Work quickly but precisely. A mistake could accelerate the collapse. Tai-Ho nodded, feeling a strange calm despite the danger. This wasn't how he had expected his diplomatic mission to unfold, but he understood the stakes. Beyond the immediate danger to the station, this was a pivotal moment for Earth's standing in the galactic community. As the security door prepared to open, Neri suddenly stepped forward. "Wait," she said, removing something from around her neck, a small crystal pendant that glowed with inner light. "This is a family heirloom. It's said to bring protection." She placed it in its hand. "Please return it when you come back." Taiho carefully tucked the crystal inside his suit. "I will." The door slid open, revealing the access corridor bathed in ominous blue emergency lighting. Radiation warnings flashed on his helmet display as he stepped through. Behind him, the door sealed automatically. "Monitoring your vitals." Jin's voice came through his helmet comm. "Radiation levels rising as expected. You have 11 minutes before reaching critical exposure." Taiho moved forward quickly but deliberately. The corridor led to another sealed door, the final barrier between him and the failing core. As it opened, a wave of blue-white light washed over him. His dosimeter immediately began climbing. The core chamber was a cathedral-like space dominated by the containment apparatus, a series of concentric rings surrounding a small, blindingly bright point of light. The normally orderly energy patterns were now distorted, sending arcs of quantum energy crackling between surfaces. "Control node is 30 meters ahead," Jin guided. "Follow the marked path to avoid highest radiation zones." Taiho moved carefully across the chamber, staying within the relatively safer areas indicated on his display. Each step brought a rise in his radiation readings. By the time he reached the control node, the dosimeter showed he had already absorbed a dangerous amount. "I'm at the node," he reported, trying to ignore the growing headache and nausea, the first signs of radiation sickness. Beginning reset sequence. With methodical precision, he opened the access panel and began the procedure displayed on his helmet. His hands remained steady despite the increasing discomfort. 7 minutes until critical exposure, Jin warned. The reset procedure was complex, requiring precise adjustments to quantum alignment systems. Any error could cause immediate failure of the remaining containment. "Energy fluctuations increasing," came another voice, a monitoring technician. "Field integrity at 17% and falling." Taiho worked faster, ignoring the sweat now pouring down his face and the metallic taste in his mouth. The radiation was affecting him more quickly than expected. 5 minutes to critical exposure. He was only halfway through the procedure. The quantum calibrator in his hand felt increasingly heavy as his strength began to falter. Neri's crystal, tucked inside his suit, seemed to grow warm against his chest. Field integrity at 12%, approaching minimum sustainable level. With sheer determination, Taiho pushed through the growing weakness in his limbs. Each adjustment to the control node was precise despite his deteriorating condition. 3 minutes to critical exposure. "Your vital signs are showing significant stress, Taiho." The final phase of the procedure required synchronizing 3 separate systems simultaneously, a task designed for the superior coordination of advanced species. Taiho's vision was beginning to blur, but he forced himself to focus. Field integrity at 8%, preparing jettison protocols. "Not yet," Taiho managed, his voice hoarse. "Almost done." With a supreme effort, he completed the final calibration sequence and initiated the restart protocol. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the control node hummed to life, lights shifting from red to green as systems came back online. "Field stabilizing." Jin's voice held disbelief and hope. "Integrity rising. 10%, 15%, 23%. Taiho leaned against the wall, suddenly too weak to stand. The procedure was complete, but now he faced another challenge: getting out of the chamber before the radiation exposure became fatal. "Taiho, the field is stabilizing, but you need to leave immediately," Jin urged. "Your exposure levels are critical." With enormous effort, Taiho pushed himself away from the wall and began the journey back across the chamber. Each step required concentrated will as his body began to fail. Field integrity at 45% and rising. Primary systems coming back online. He was halfway to the exit when his legs gave out. Tahoe fell to his knees, the room spinning around him. Through the haze of pain and nausea, he saw the door ahead open. A figure in a heavy protection suit rushed toward him. "I told you to wait." Jin's voice came through the comm. "And I chose not to listen," answered Neri's voice as she reached Tahoe and helped him to his feet. "Let's go, Earthman. You have a pendant to return." Together they made their way to the exit, Tahoe leaning heavily on Neri's support. As the door sealed behind them, decontamination systems activated automatically, bathing them in cleansing energy. Field integrity at 72%. Containment holding. Crisis averted. In the medical center, doctors from various worlds worked to treat Tahoe's radiation exposure. The Academy had immediately contacted Earth for treatment protocols, and emergency medicines were being synthesized based on human medical databases. Neri never left his side, even during the most intensive treatments. Something fundamental had changed, not just in her perception of Tahoe, but in the Academy's understanding of humanity itself. What they had witnessed was more than bravery. It was a demonstration of qualities that more advanced species had engineered out of themselves over centuries of evolution. The ability to endure damage, to function under extreme stress, to adapt rapidly to changing conditions. As Tahoe drifted in and out of consciousness, he heard the doctors discussing his condition with a mixture of concern and fascination. One phrase kept repeating, though he was too weak to fully comprehend its significance. Reclassification petition. Level 4 potential. Unique evolutionary advantages. The last thing Tahoe saw before falling into healing sleep was Neri's face, all three eyes focused on him with an expression that transcended species differences, a look of profound respect. Tahoe stood at the large viewing window of the Academy's diplomatic wing, watching the colorful blur of ships arriving for the reclassification ceremony. 3 months had passed since the containment field crisis. His recovery had been difficult but complete, thanks to advanced treatments and his body's natural resilience. "Nervous?" asked Nari, joining him at the window. She wore formal Arcturian robes, signifying her new position as head of the Academy's Department of Human Studies, a department that hadn't existed before Tahoe's arrival. "A little," he admitted. "I never expected to become Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council." After the crisis, everything had changed. Reports of Tahoe's actions spread throughout the Academy, then to the Council itself. Earth, long dismissed as an unremarkable Level 2 world, suddenly became the subject of intense interest. The Council had fast-tracked Earth's reclassification to Level 4 status, unprecedented in galactic history. "Your formal robes arrived," Neri said, holding out a package. The Council tailors followed Earth designs, but adapted them for the ceremony. Tahoe opened the package to find an elegant diplomatic uniform combining traditional Korean elements with symbols of his new ambassadorial status. The fabric shimmered subtly with embedded technology that would help him interact with various alien environments. "It's perfect," he said. As he prepared for the ceremony, Tahoe reflected on how completely perceptions had shifted. The alien students who once mocked Earth now studied human history and culture with genuine interest. The Academy had established exchange programs specifically focused on human adaptability and resilience. Professor Hannah entered the room, her silver skin adorned with ceremonial markings. "The Council representatives are arriving. We should proceed to the Grand Hall." They walked through corridors that had become familiar to Tahoe over the past months. Alien students and faculty nodded respectfully as they passed. No longer was he viewed as a curiosity from a primitive world. He was the hero who had saved the Academy and the representative of a newly recognized power in galactic affairs. The Grand Hall was filled with beings from dozens of worlds. At the center stood the 12 Council Elders, ancient beings who guided interstellar policy. Their physical forms varied dramatically. Some appeared almost human, others were barely recognizable as life forms to Earth eyes. Taiho took his position on the ceremonial platform. Beside him stood the holographic projections of Earth's leaders. Connected through technology the Council had provided after the crisis. They looked both proud and slightly overwhelmed by the alien assembly. The oldest Council elder, a being of pure light contained in a crystalline body, approached the center of the platform. Today we witness a rare event in our history. The elder's voice resonated through the hall, automatically translated for all present. The recognition of potential realized before its time. The elder gestured, and a holographic image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly above the assembly. Earth has been classified as Level 2 for 3 centuries, since our observers first detected their primitive radio signals. By standard developmental models, they should require another 5 centuries to reach Level 4 status. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Most species progressed through technological and social development at predictable rates. Earth's sudden advancement was unprecedented. Yet we have witnessed qualities in humans that our models failed to predict. The elder continued. Their adaptability in crisis. Their capacity to endure damage and recover. Their ability to function effectively in environments hostile to their physiology. The hologram changed to show Taiho during the containment crisis, working methodically despite dangerous radiation levels. Most importantly, we have observed their unique balance of individual initiative and collective concern, a willingness to risk personal safety for the greater community, even a community not their own. The elder turned to face Taiho directly. Representative Taiho, your actions demonstrated qualities that many so-called advanced species have engineered out of themselves in pursuit of specialization and efficiency. You have shown us that evolution finds different paths to excellence. Nari, standing at the edge of the platform, couldn't help but smile at hearing her own words repeated by a council elder. Earth is hereby reclassified as Level 4, with all associated rights and responsibilities. We establish formal diplomatic relations and welcome Earth as a protectorate world of the Galactic Council. The elder extended a limb of light, touching a glowing symbol to Taiho's forehead. The sensation was warm but not unpleasant. You are confirmed as Earth's first ambassador. Your embassy will be established here at the Academy, where you will guide the integration of human knowledge into our collective wisdom. The assembly erupted in the varied forms of applause used by different species. Humming, light flashes, appendage movements, and actual clapping from those with compatible physiology. Later, at the reception, Taiho found himself surrounded by council representatives eager to establish connections with Earth. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and technology sharing were all being proposed. Earth would still not receive the most advanced technologies. Those were reserved for full council members, but the barrier that had kept humanity isolated had been decisively broken. Overwhelmed? Asked Suma, the purple-skinned Pleiadian who had once referred to Taiho as Nari's pet. Now she spoke with genuine respect. A bit, Taiho admitted. Earth has much to learn about galactic politics. And we have much to learn from Earth, Sumi replied. My world has requested permission to study human resilience techniques. Our species has become so specialized that we've lost adaptive capabilities. This was a common theme in conversations throughout the reception. Advanced worlds had often sacrificed versatility for efficiency, breeding out primitive traits that suddenly seemed valuable again. As the celebration continued, Taiho stepped away for a moment of quiet. He found a small observation deck overlooking the stars. Earth was not visible from this distance, but he knew roughly where to look. Nari joined him, carrying 2 glasses of a shimmering liquid. Ceremonial nectar, she explained. Non-toxic to humans. I checked. They touched glasses in a gesture Nari had learned from Earth customs. I've been meaning to return this, Taiho said, removing the crystal pendant she had given him before the crisis. It still glowed with inner light. Nari shook her head. Keep it. It's a tradition to give it to someone who has changed your life's path. She hesitated. And you certainly did that. How so? I was raised to believe that advanced meant superior. That technological development was the only meaningful measure of a civilization's worth. She looked out at the stars. You showed me, showed all of us, that there are different kinds of advancement. In the weeks after the crisis, Neri had shocked her peers by proposing the new Department of Human Studies. Many had thought it a waste of resources until the Council itself expressed interest in human adaptability. The first group of Academy students will visit Earth next month, Taiho said. They'll probably be shocked by how primitive some things still are. They'll also see things we've lost, Neri replied. Art created by hand instead of molecular assemblers. Music played on physical instruments. Buildings designed for beauty as well as function. A chime sounded, calling them back to the reception. As they turned to leave, Taiho paused. Did you ever imagine, when we first met, that you'd end up studying humans professionally? Neri laughed, a musical sound that her species used to express genuine amusement. I'd have said you were delusional. I plan to specialize in quantum engineering, not primitive species research. And now I believe it's the most important work in the galaxy. Her expression grew serious. The Council scientists believe Earth represents a unique evolutionary path, one that maintained adaptability while developing intelligence. That combination is exceedingly rare. They rejoined the reception, where plans for Earth's future were being enthusiastically discussed. New trade routes, cultural exchanges, scientific partnerships. Humanity would advance rapidly with carefully controlled access to galactic knowledge. 6 months later, Taiho stood on the newly constructed viewing platform of Earth's first official extraterrestrial embassy. Built into the structure of the Academy itself, the embassy's windows looked out on the same stars that humans had wondered about for thousands of years. Behind him, a delegation of Earth scientists was meeting with Academy researchers, comparing notes on a dozen collaborative projects. In another room, cultural specialists were cataloging human art, music, and literature for the galactic archives. Neri entered his office, carrying a data crystal. The latest reports from the Earth Exchange Program, she said. The Academy students are adjusting well to Earth conditions. Any complaints? Taiho asked. They find the gravity slightly strong and the atmosphere dense, she said with amusement. But they're fascinated by Earth's biodiversity. One student has written 3 research papers just on your insects. Taiho smiled. And how many research papers have you written about humans since we met? 17, she admitted, with 3 more in progress. Her latest work examined how Earth's variable environment had created pressure for humans to maintain adaptive flexibility rather than specializing. This theory was gaining attention throughout the Council scientific community. The Council has approved the next phase of technology sharing, Taiho said, bringing up a holographic display of the agreement. Clean energy systems, advanced medical techniques, and atmospheric restoration technology. These carefully selected technologies would help Earth solve its most pressing problems without disrupting human development. The Council was determined not to repeat mistakes made with other worlds, where too much technology too quickly had led to cultural collapse. There's something else, Neri said. The Academy wants to create a new classification for species like humans. They're calling it Adaptive Intelligence Pathway, as opposed to Specialized Intelligence Pathway that most Council worlds followed. Earth is a category rather than just a planet. Taiho smiled. That would have been unimaginable a year ago. Through the embassy windows, a small ship departed the Academy, heading for Earth with another group of alien researchers eager to study humanity firsthand. Similar ships were arriving, bringing human scientists to study at the Academy. In corridors where alien students had once mockingly imitated humans, Earth culture was now studied seriously. In laboratories where human technology had been considered primitive, Earth's different approach to problem-solving was inspiring new research directions. What had begun with ridicule had transformed into respect, then genuine interest, and finally partnership. Earth's journey to the stars had taken an unexpected path, not through superior technology or military might, but through qualities the galaxy had nearly forgotten were valuable. As Taiho watched the ships come and go, he thought about how one small moment of crisis had changed everything. Not because he had done anything extraordinary, but because he had simply been human, with all the adaptability, resilience, and unexpected strength that humanity had developed on their challenging, unpredictable world. "There's a council saying," Neri said, sensing his thoughts. "The universe reveals its patterns to those who survive long enough to see them." "We have a similar saying on Earth," Taiho replied. "The longest way around is the shortest way home." Together they watched the stars, representatives of worlds that had evolved along very different paths, but now found unexpected value in each other's differences. The end. Through the embassy windows, a small ship departed the academy, heading for Earth with another group of alien researchers eager to study humanity firsthand. Similar ships were arriving, bringing human scientists to study at the academy. In corridors where alien students had once mockingly imitated humans, Earth culture was now studied seriously. In laboratories where human technology had been considered primitive, Earth's different approach to problem-solving was inspiring new research directions. What had begun with ridicule had transformed into respect, then genuine interest, and finally partnership. Earth's journey to the stars had taken an unexpected path, not through superior technology or military might, but through qualities the galaxy had nearly forgotten were valuable. As Taiho watched the ships come and go, he thought about how one small moment of crisis had changed everything. Not because he had done anything extraordinary, but because he had simply been human, with all the adaptability, resilience, and unexpected strength that humanity had developed on their challenging, unpredictable world. "There's a council saying," Neri said, sensing his thoughts. "The universe reveals its patterns to those who survive long enough to see them." "We have a similar saying on Earth," Taiho replied. "The longest way around is the shortest way home." Together they watched the stars, representatives of worlds that had evolved along very different paths, but now found unexpected value in each other's differences. The end.